the thousand.
WWF Attitude was released by Acclaim Entertainment on July 31st for the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. The game was developed by Sculptured Software, the guys behind WWF In Your House from 1996, WarZone from 1998, Royal Rumble from 1993, and even Super WrestleMania from 1992. It would also be the 14th straight wrestling game produced by Acclaim, and would be the last official title made for the WWF. In addition, the game's original release date was meant to be March 1999, before getting delayed into June, and then again until its ultimate release at the end of July. Its first planned release date was the time on WWF television when Dr. Death Steve Williams was getting a mid-card push, where he was managed by a heel Jim Ross. The official strategy guide makes note of this, and it's important as most people don't really even understand why Dr. Death is present in this game at all. A slightly enhanced port of the game was later released for the Dreamcast, as well as a handheld version for the Game Boy Color. And although we'll talk in more details about the differences between console variations, I have to say straight away that the N64 version does not have different costumes that can be chosen. Something that honestly is very disappointing. Limiting the replayability of every single character in the game by making them always have their bland default outfit is 100% a sin. Especially when over on the PlayStation each wrestler has 4 attires in total that can be selected immediately after the game has started. It's kinda crazy to think about, especially when the other costumes are present in the game when you happen to choose a character 4 times over. Guess it's down to the limitations of the console and the cartridge-based gaming system in place, but I really don't get it.
My silent rage!
Even the Dreamcast version does not have access to alternative costumes when choosing your selected wrestler.
The Diggity Dizzog is in the house!
This game of course is a sequel to WWF WarZone and the last WWF game to be published by Acclaim. The WWF would go on to sign a deal with THQ later in 1999, ending a 10-year relationship that began with WWF WrestleMania. Were people excited for a new wrestling title after WarZone? Hard to say. After delivering a game like WarZone, it's probably pretty easy to make something that improves upon what we saw previously, and comparing to the WarZone footage that's seen on screen, it's very easy to see how far they have actually come in this regard. Presentation wise, this title looks leagues better. Even by just looking over the older footage of mine, you can see how far things have come. The graphics here are about what you expect. Textures resembling photos of the wrestlers stretched over a model composed of 20 polygons, having 2 polys for the left and right side of the faces. The skins themselves don't look too great, but the blood is especially bad looking. It generally does look like somebody just went into paint and added some red marks to the texture itself. Of course, the Dreamcast does seem to have the best looking blood, but not by much. The crowd in the PlayStation and N64 versions are bland 2D images, limited to around 3 frames of animation and are just kinda blurry. The Dreamcast version though, this one went straight for the Daytona USA school of crowd, and they are all animated too much. It's hilarious to look at. Some hold an Austin 316 sign and others just bounce in their seat. I guess the thing to do here would be to get them more involved, whilst hitting big moves and getting the crowd on your side would have them more animated, just like in WWF WarZone. But outside of the 3 frames that we tend to get on the 2 base consoles discussed here, there probably isn't much more that could have been done. Although it's probably obvious when watching the footage back, I didn't really realise till after the fact how good the Dreamcast version actually looks. I was leaning towards the PlayStation and N64 just for the gameplay side of things, but graphically, the Dreamcast version does look great compared to the other 2, even if this was just a below HD image stretched to fit. The game seems to have only 3 arenas, though this isn't actually the case. It's only because the rest of the arenas are locked behind the custom arena selection when choosing before the start of a match. When hitting the custom button, you can put together the worst looking WrestleMania arena of all time. Completely lackluster, just replacing the Heat logos with the WrestleMania ones. Or if you fancy wrestling in Kane's fancy pink lighting, you can choose that right from one of the options here too, having one of the worst last man standing matches ever seen between Jeff Jarrett and Kane, bathed in a beautiful Barbie pink glow. When it comes to gameplay alone, most characters feel almost identical to play, due to having so many identical moves throughout the entire roster. It is interesting when you get mismatched against different opponents. Take a match between Sable and Shamrock for example. It definitely feels different to take control as Shamrock, as most of his moves end up with you hitting either suplexes, submissions or throws, as well as some kicks for good measure. It's definitely enough to keep it fresh. Blood, as I mentioned previously, makes its debut in this title after not appearing as an option in WarZone, and it really does just look like someone took a Sharpie and put it on the opponent in random spots. It really is strange to see the back of Billy Gunn's hair start to bleed, while The Rock suddenly have blood appear on his chest or arms. Weirder than that was the time that I won a Fatal 4-Way by drawing with Billy Gunn when The Rock was counted out. This came after I pinned Road Dogg and eliminated him, so figure that one out. It's time to talk about the roster selection found in WWF Attitude. You have the obvious guys returning from WarZone, that being Steve Austin, Triple H, The Rock, Taker, Kane, Mankind, Ken Shamrock, Owen, the Headbangers, Goldust, Farouk, and both Cactus and Dude Love, though this time they are locked away as different costumes for Mankind, so only take up one slot. It's a missed opportunity honestly, as when playing as Dude Love or Cactus, you are essentially just Mankind but with a different skin on top. No new lines of dialogue or moves, so having Cactus Jack use the Mandible Claw is just a weird one. There are 42 wrestlers in Attitude compared to the 18 wrestlers of the base roster of WarZone. The new guys are highlighted by newcomers like Al Snow with Head, an actual floating head who you can wrestle as, mid-carders like the Grandmaster Sexay, Taka Michinoku, Gangrel and Val Venus.
Hello, ladies.
There's a random selection of guys such as Dr. Death, Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, Jacqueline, Sable, Droz of all people, Paul Bearer and Mark Mero, as well as others who just overall round out the roster quite well, like the entire faction of DX, X-Pac, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels and Chyna. The entire ministry is also relatively present, with the APA, Edge and Christian. The Nation are here too, with D'Lo Brown, Godfather, Mark Henry and their former leader The Rock. And on top of all of that, we have the last video game inclusion of Owen Hart, somebody who this title was dedicated to, with his in-game reaction and appearance being that of a babyface who is cheered whenever he makes his way to the ring, a very sweet token by Acclaim. His death delayed the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 versions from its initial release of June 1999, likely to remove his blue blazer alternative costume as seen in early screenshots from an April 1999 prototype version of the game. The dedication to Owen was removed from the Dreamcast version due to the wrongful death lawsuit being filed against the WWF by the Hart family. Owens is still, however, a playable character in this version. Let's also take a quick look at the pay-per-view mode, where you can make your own pay-per-view, essentially creating your own ring and match card on the spot, then playing through the entire thing in a row, seeing if you enjoy it or not, I guess. There's not much to it really. It is possible to have a King of the Ring match in every single match though, which is weird. I guess you could do 8-man tournaments in a row. What's actually very cool about pay-per-view mode is how you can set a match limit to super low, making each wrestler basically start the match knowing it's a squash. Kane beating Steve Blackman in 25 seconds, Big Boss Man beating Edge in 35. It's a great little feature that just adds a little realism to a match, especially if you just book something to fill the spot on the card. I can only imagine how cool it would have been in 1999 to kill some time, throwing together your favourite pay-per-view card and seeing how it would play out gameplay wise. Obviously it wouldn't be super like the real thing with no run-ins or championship titles on the line, but I feel for a younger player this would be a really cool thing to do. On top of that, the idea of putting together a dream card to compare with your friends could also be something that people would be into. I can just imagine having friends come over and sleep over and say, hey, my favourite match on so-and-so's card was this, and then putting together a whole new pay-per-view with a whole new bunch of lights and stuff, and just coming up and seeing what you have. What's especially weird about this pay-per-view that I made is that because of the blue ropes and the white lighting, it just kind of reminds me of Impact, so it's really strange to look at. Before we move on properly from the roster, I want to talk about the alternative costumes again, because there are some excellent ones here on show. A great example is Goldust, who has 4 different variations of his standard 1998 design, including a flashback 97 style Goldust from his debut with Marlena. Mankind, as noted, has Cactus, Dude Love as alts, as well as his referee attire from Mania 15. Road Dogg has some sweet looking hardcore style attires from around that time period as well, whereas somebody like Jacqueline has a crazy looking attire, which is just a straight bikini. Kane, of course, has his 1 sleeve and 2 sleeve, black reverse colour 2 sleeves and 1 sleeve variants. Taker's default look in this title is his ministry gear, but as an alt is his slightly older look from 1998, as well as his super older look from his debut style gear, complete with big fluffy purple and grey gloves. The Rock has his iconic Royal Rumble 99 gear, as well as a few variations on his classic logo. Jeff Jarrett has 4 quite unique looking gears, including a super flashback attire from his 98 SummerSlam appearance. Owen Hart has 4 iconic gears from his post-Brett run, whereas a guy like Bradshaw has his Blackjack style look, and Farouk has his Nation of Domination look. Again, it's absolutely bizarre that you can't choose any of these attires on the Dreamcast version. What sense does that make? The Dreamcast version is meant to be the definitive version of this game, and it's just not. Better graphics, better audience animations and textures, better soundtrack, but still lacking compared to the PlayStation version.
The ministry will soon reign.
Let's move on to taking a look at the different match types found in WWF Attitude. There's a bunch of match types on offer here, although there is a few that are just kind of pointless. Lumberjack seems like one of those. 2 wrestlers stand around at ringside and that's it, that's the match. I guess if there was an easy way to throw your opponent to the ground outside, this match would make more sense. There's gauntlet matches, tag gauntlets, Survivor Series matches, the Royal Rumble Battle Royale, War, which is essentially a 4-way elimination match, a stable match, as well as the standard triple threat and triangle matchups. There's a hardcore match option, cage match, last man standing, tough man match, which can only be used in handicap matches, whatever that means, and falls count anywhere. There's modifiers like Iron Man, I Quit, Finisher, 2 out of 3 falls and First Blood that can be added to any of the other match types. From looking at the main menu, there is also a King of the Ring option, so let's take a quick look. It's a fairly simple game type mode, pairing up 8 superstars against one another, with the option to skip each of the CPU's matches or watching them play out. And that's about it. I had a quick run through of Triple H, and as easy as it was, in the last match of the night, The Undertaker just completely squashed me, hit me with a choke slam and pinned me straight up. So...
Triple H is in trouble.
Are you ready?
Hardcore matches in this title are still very similar to the ones found in WarZone, and was something I tend not to choose, mainly due to the fact that it turned off the entrances. The weapons found here though are a pretty decent selection. From Austin and McMahon's bedpan to a briefcase and a TV, though my favourite weapon of all is the microphone. This weapon is absolutely hilarious. It's just funny every single time a wrestler uses it. It lets out an incredibly loud amount of feedback throughout the arena, and it never fails to crack me up. It's just so funny. It's weird to see that these 3 weapons are the standard as opposed to chairs, tables and other more normal selection of weapons that were found more so around this time period. Though chairs can be found outside the ring. Other weapons featured include a handheld camera, trash can and Al Snow's head. it's time to talk about career mode, which makes its return in this game, and although this version is genuinely an interesting creation and would make a return in the following two Acclaim titles as well, it does leave a few things to be desired. You're tasked with picking a single wrestler or a tag team with your friend, and then making your way through the ranks of each of the available singles titles. You have around 15 opponents, not including special matches or challenge matches, where you're essentially tasked with building your star up from jobber, wrestling weekly on Heat and house shows to Raw, and eventually earning yourself a WWF European Championship match. Of course, occasionally there's thrown in matches like lumberjack matches, triangle finisher matches and matches like that, but nothing really shows out after a sea of match after match. There is no storyline here at all, which honestly is very disappointing. I guess I wasn't expecting cutscenes, but the least that could have been offered was anything, and this is not that. This is nothing. Before each match you get a look at a calendar, with all types of matches on the list: Heat, house shows and Shotgun on Saturday night. After eventually making your way through past the Grandmaster Sexays, Dr. Deaths, Val Venuses, Edge and Christians, you eventually get to wrestle guys who you haven't even unlocked yet, like Kurgan, which is at least something interesting. As noted, I do think there is something to this kind of mode. It's essentially the universe mode of today, just instead of having the normal shows like Raw and SmackDown, you bounce from house show to house show, hoping to get your hands on a European title shot. I don't think there are many other games that offer this kind of an interesting idea, but maybe I'm wrong, but I honestly do believe there is something to this. Playing wrestling games is it's a form of wish fulfillment. By playing Attitude, you get to enjoy the monotony and boring nature of going from town to town wrestling in front of nobody for literally no goal. This could be something if the WWE leaned into it a little bit more, but there isn't anything that really got this close to having something as interesting and engaging as this kind of career mode. And speaking of career mode, this game really loves to throw complete and total nonsensical matches at you. And I'd be doing fine, win after win, moving up the ranks, then suddenly I'm in a battle royale or a 2-on-1 handicap match. Just completely unfair. So let's fast forward. I get to the top of the European Championship title mode, and during a grudge match with D'Lo Brown, Jerry Lawler ran in. Immediately after dispatching them both, I was tasked with a triangle grudge match against both of them. Guess I'm not the champion yet after all. After around 6 minutes, I managed to hit both of them with a rock bottom to hopefully put the European Championship around the People Champion's waist for the first time. Or so I thought. Then came another 4 matches with Lawler, Kurgan and D'Lo, but with random stipulations. Suddenly it was the end of the month and I was facing Lawler for the European title at the King of the Ring. I hit all my favourites, the Samoan Drop, float around DDT, Spinebuster, took him to Suplex City before scoring the rock bomb and winning the championship. It's worth noting that losing at a PayPerView would knock you back 3 points in the rankings, a huge loss if you happen to experience it. It turns out I unlocked a new cheat and was given a big congratulations as I was the new European champion.
Time once again for everybody to come aboard the train!
Up next was 5 belt defences, I guess, before we move on to the next title, the Intercontinental Championship. Honestly, the entire point of career mode would be to fight for a title, being able to see somebody actually hold the title at the end of it, and that just isn't something that's possible here, which is definitely a shame. We saw how cool it was to have our wrestlers of choice hold a title in the previous WCW title developed by Aki, so it really is a shame that the excellent WWF titles aren't seen on the shoulder of wrestlers who win them in this title. Career mode is also where most of the unlocking comes from, with the European title for example unlocking the trainer as an active wrestler, and new creation options and squeaky mode. Squeaky mode made the theme music and in-ring introductions sound super squeaky. It's pretty funny. Even the audience is squeaky as well as the announcers. Even the main menu is squeaky.
I'm gonna take it out on your hide! Someone should start digging your grave.
Other unlocks range from Big Head mode, Beep mode, a mode which bleeps all of the swearing in the game, as well as having other random unlocks take place during pay-per-view matches. King of the Ring, for example, would have you unlock Kurgan and Taka. Wrestling in the Rumble would grant you Lawler and Paul Bearer. SummerSlam gives up Sergeant Slaughter and Shawn Michaels. The motion capture in WWF Attitude is nothing particularly special. The gameplay is pretty much a mirror of WWF WarZone with a ton of blocky movements that are on par with most fighting games of this era. Although they were not featured in this video game, Matt and Jeff Hardy provided all of the motion capture behind the scenes that are seen in this title, just like in WarZone. Let's talk about entrances. Now, it should probably go without saying that for the time, These were incredibly neat and kind of revolutionary in a way. The wrestler walks down to the ring, they sometimes pose, and they have their actual theme music. The lights flash for them, they have their entrance pyro. It's definitely a step up from WarZone. It's a shame that somebody like The Rock doesn't have much more of an entrance. Instead of walking to the ring, not posing, just kind of standing awkwardly. There's guys like Christian who would walk out to the ring with the music and lights synchronized, whereas his partner Edge walks in through the crowd, which does look excellent. He even lets out a scream whilst in the ring. There are guys like Taker and Kane who have some of the best entrances, which should really go without saying. They're pretty timeless, though the Dreamcast in this case kind of ruins the entrances entirely by having the transparent fire look kind of green sometimes. This could of course be an emulation issue, but nonetheless it isn't present on the PlayStation or N64 versions of this title, so I blame the Dreamcast. When comparing each of the entrances on each of the consoles, the PlayStation, well, it's tough to say if it really wins this one. It's very close between the PlayStation and the Dreamcast. The arena goes completely dark and the shadows and the light mixing together look absolutely surreal and realistic at the same time. It does look really good. Taker's entrance with the moody blue light and Kane's entrance with the sweet red flame mixed with his alternative attires is very cool. The trade-off though, and this probably goes without saying, is the damn loading screens, which are completely absent in both the Dreamcast and N64 versions. Well, they're absent if you're playing a one-on-one match. Loading into the match straight after loading into the entrances is quite a sin, especially on the PlayStation. There are guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin when making their entrances actually hit all four corners and wobble when make their way from one side to the other, and look absolutely ridiculous when doing so. It's also worth noting that each of the three arena types have a different style of entrance. The PayPerView ramp is completely flat, whereas the Raw arena has stairs leading down to the ring, which honestly is very cool. It's awesome how they programmed each wrestler to walk down the stairs, something I didn't even think about. On top of that, Austin has his glass shattering entrance and Gangrel has his sweet rise from the floor entrance, but only in the Raw arena. Triple H, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn and The Godfather all have their own voice entrances, where they either magically have a microphone if they're appearing in the ring, or actually make their way out whilst holding one. Another excellent little detail.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody! It's me, it's that D-O-double-G!
Even weirder is when Vaughan does his vocal entrance without any kind of microphone at all.
Hello, ladies.
And now let's talk about the post entrance and what comes next. Well, it's time for the smack talking to begin, and honestly it is very impressive how many lines each wrestler actually recorded for this game.
You can't kill my buzz!
You will kneel down before the Lord of Darkness.
It's a huge amount of commitment that is missing even from today's titles.
Step on up to bat, cause I'm supplying the wood.
Call me a maniac.
The fact that Austin has over a minute of different lines is just insane. What's even more insane is that almost everybody else on the roster has about the same amount.
I'm gonna beat your ass, and that's the damnedest bottom line I ever bottom line.
Of course, somebody like Sable only has a few lines. Time is money after all. But somebody like Farouk will rant about how your soul now belongs to The Undertaker for minutes on end.
Oh, you just sit back and watch out for the sky high or the lowdown, brother.
Again, much like we heard with WarZone, it's definitely a off its time feature. We saw this in the WCW titles from around this time, so it's not an overly original idea, though the WCW stars cutting a single promo doesn't compare to the excellent content that's on offer here.
Now you'll feel the power of the world's strongest man.
You just didn't listen, did ya?
China, for example, who was relatively not known for her speaking parts around this time for some reason, has all anti-DX quotes, as this game came out straight after WrestleMania, where she joined the corporation, which is a very weird dedication to the bit.
I am by far the strongest woman alive.
Let's talk about controls. Now, for whatever reason, the Dreamcast and the N64 controls are very similar and essentially work the same through emulation, though the PlayStation has always been much more dependent on the front buttons instead of the triggers. Of course, the PlayStation controller, although originally lacked analog sticks, did always have R bumper and R triggers, though named R2 and L2. When it comes to these titles, I feel, honestly, I really enjoy the Aki-inspired control system. It's so based. It's great. Using the bumpers of the controller for apple and attacks makes perfect sense. Of course, a title like Attitude complicates things slightly by throwing in the kick button, which is assigned to triangle or the Y button on the controller, making my fingers have to leave my beloved triggers and bumpers. They're cold without the sweet embrace of the bumpers. Oh, so cold. To heat things up, Attitude brings back the beloved up, down, left to right fatality style move system that was debuted in WarZone. This time around, a super kick is as easy as left right square from Shawn Michaels, making this move totally unfair. Super easy to spam that one. Kane's tombstone is up up down, which of course, like before, is similar to Taker's up down up circle, which is actually the same as Austin's Stone Cold Stunner. I much prefer the way that WarZone had both tombstones and opposite inputs. Now a move like the Godfather's Pimp Drop is a sweet left right down punch, whereas a Shamrock ankle lock requires a left down right kick. Speaking of finishes, it's still hard to see when and where one is actually the most effective. On the Dreamcast, I hit Droz with 3 almost straight Fame Asses before getting the pinfall, with him jumping straight back up and no-selling the first 2 that I scored on him. In other matches, a single finisher is more than enough to put the opponent away, though I do think this ties into the time limit on a match being made shorter, therefore making moves more effective and brutal, leading to quicker matches. Although there is something to be said about the unseen momentum style gameplay that is present underneath the surface, during any match it's important to try to use a variety of moves to get the crowd cheering for you. When they begin cheering, you can inflict double damage to your opponents, and you automatically kick out of pinfalls and submissions when you are low on health. So if you're about to lose a match with low health, it's important to get the crowd cheering. When the crowd is cheering, your name will start blinking rapidly. I kinda wish more attention was given to this, or if it was explained at all instead of just assuming we'd figure this out, but there it is. There's a new box next to the wrestler's name, known as a tie-up meter. The more blue the box, the better chance you have of winning a tie-up game with an opponent, though I always found that just spamming buttons quicker than my opponent tended to have me coming out on top and just ended the tie-up prematurely, which probably wasn't the way this game was designed to be played. The power bar also makes its return from WarZone. Blue stun meter from WarZone is now completely gone, which is odd. I didn't even notice that. The heads-up display is definitely easier to understand this time around due to its simplicity. The move complexity score also makes a return, where if you attempt to hit a stronger move on your opponent without a full lockup bar and they go for a weaker move, the weaker move will tend to normally win. It's definitely an upgrade from WarZone. Once you finish a match, there is always stats on display. It's new but completely useless. I skipped over this 100% of the time. Is there anything else worth discussing about Attitude, or have I said enough? For my time playing Attitude, I enjoyed it. It's an easy to pick up and master, using kicks and punches before you start looking into what each wrestler's moves are and learning the combinations. You can kind of feel yourself start to grow as you play more and more and start to learn the way that a character is controlled. It's a shame that there is no major swing in momentum during a match, with major reversals playing next to no part in this title. Sure, you can reverse a suplex or no-sell or finisher move when the crowd is behind you, but apart from those 2 things, there isn't really a strategy that you can put to work. Running at an opponent, knocking them down time and time again, it just isn't a rewarding experience. It's a cheap way to beat someone. There's no incentive to explore the outside of the ring either. You can get beat real quick outside with no way back in. So it's also a negative to slip outside the ring. In an Aki title or any other wrestling title than this one, running to the outside provides a moment of clarity and gives you the chance to let your opponent cool down a little. In some titles, the opponent will give chase, which also happens in Attitude, but it's really just a pointless thing. I understand that every standard wrestling game now needs decent intros and the ability to go outside of the ring, but with no way to really launch attacks through the ropes in a highly successful manner, it does seem rather pointless overall. That's not to say that over-the-top rope moves aren't in this title, as they are, but either one I've never found a useful one. Battle Royales and Royal Rumbles are fun for a little while, but after about 5 opponents, the novelty runs out very quickly. The ability to suplex people over the top rope is great, and sometimes I truly miss this in the current day and age, but again, it runs out of steam. Hardcore matches are dull and uninteresting. Your opponent stands up, you knock them down, you pick up another weapon and repeat. There is no thought to it, no strategy, and is just a gimmick. Cage matches are awful. You must damage each opponent till their health is red, then leave. That's it. No ring ropes, again, for whatever reason, just boring and uninteresting. As I spoke about in passing, the controls are incredibly archaic, even for a title released in 1999. The analog sticks had been around for a couple of years and are a must in sports games. Imagine if they were included even slightly. Each console this game was ported to, not including the Game Boy Color, had an analog stick that could have been used, and that's not even mentioning the completely missing vibration function in this title. Maybe going forward there could have been a different way to present moves to you, or a way that standard wrestling moves could have been implemented. I don't remember ever actually being forced to use the lockup feature, though hitting B or O in every wrestling game after WCW vs. the World essentially used the lockup feature extensively. The lockup in most wrestling games served as a gateway to a whole new selection of moves to choose from, and this honestly felt completely absent from Attitude. All of the huge moves that you need to pull out came from just standing in front of your opponent without engaging with them first. Is this without doubt a negative? Well, not entirely. Although different states of wrestlers standing in the ring in front of you could very easily serve as a simple way to activate the next set of wrestling moves. Some moves could be executed easily, keeping them rather simple, whereas locking up would unlock another 4 moves that could be used next. Upon picking up a dazed opponent from the floor, this could unlock another set of moves that could be used exclusively in that scenario. Now I know at this point I'm probably just describing every wrestling game that came out after this one, but if you think about applying that to WWF Attitude or WarZone even for a second, you can only imagine how much better this would have made the gameplay. Another note that is worth mentioning is how crisp and clear the songs are for each wrestler, apart from on the N64, but even that version is trying. Now, to correct something that I said earlier, changing the option from everybody to teen basically unlocks the wrestler's original unedited theme songs, which is something crazy I didn't even notice until after the fact. Oh, and I also want to touch on the Create Wrestler mode, as it makes a return. I didn't mess around with it very much this time around, but I did when the title was new. I actually have a memory buried deep within my brain from 1999, where myself and my sister actually put together a wrestler at a party when I guess we were bored. I can't really explain it. I do have to say that in closing, the commentary did get a chuckle out of me, and it definitely deserves a mention before we close this chapter. I did love the way that Shane would interact with Jerry Lawler, referring to him as Kingfish, like it's his crazy uncle or something. It was cute, and it wasn't something that Shane had to go out of his way to do. If you think about the commentary teams at the time, I believe Shane had some kind of experience on working on Heat and other B shows, as well as some random guest commentary spots here and there, but by 1999, especially by WrestleMania, he was already the European champion. Even crazier than that is that every line that features gender has an equivalent for the other gender, for a game that has 3 female wrestlers. What sense does that make? Just insane. And it was a nice thing for Shane to do, stepping in for JR whilst he dealt with a health issue he was facing at the time. WWF Attitude is fine. It's honestly not the worst wrestling game ever made. In fact, it wasn't even the worst wrestling game that came out in 1999, but it sure as hell wasn't the best.